All right, everybody, welcome in here to Trending Politics Live. My name is Clayton Kearns. As you guys know, here on a Thursday, this week is flying by. As you guys know, last night we had an amazing debate performance by Mike Pence, and we are going to be recapping that here with my special guest today. She goes by Fog City Midge on all forms of social media. How's it going today?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I know a lot of our audience is familiar with you because the video that you just did going undercover, and we're going to cover that a little bit later in the video today. But the video that you did going undercover as a Joe Biden supporter trying to find support for this guy, that went viral on our site. Well over 200,000 page views. We get a lot of traffic, but we don't normally get that much traffic on one article, so it'll be good to recap that with you here a little bit later after we get into all the debate stuff.
Yeah, sounds great. That was really fun and hilarious, bizarre experiment. But yeah, so excited to talk about the debate last night. I was on fire. It was so good. Cannot wait to get into it.
So what was your first overall reaction? So maybe if you want, maybe in contrast to last week's debates with President Trump, and then I guess compared to this week of like what Pence did so well, like in your opinion.
Yeah, when I actually watched Trump's debate at the Trump International Hotel in Washington, so it was a very different experience.
Okay, cool.
When of a party environment, it was even hard to hear. So it was like, you've got people there that are surrounded by the fans. And I actually, have went back and revisited that debate. And I think that there was a lot of stuff Trump did really well. But I have to say what was incredible about Pence last night is first, my impression of Pence is he's really nice. He doesn't always fight strong enough. Maybe just because of his demeanor.
Yes.
He's a little more low energy. He's more, he's just more of a chill leader. And I sometimes wonder whether or not he is tough enough to go up against people, someone who's so vile like Kamala Harris. But last night, he just blew through. I knew he was going to do well because they are so radical. And if you just sort of point out their ideas, but I mean, he did so well. He blew through the stratosphere of my expectations. Yeah. There was sort of a list of things that I retweeted that I thought that Pence needs to be ready for and to attack her on and to respond to. And he hit almost every single one of those things and hit them so well. And I thought his personality, which is very calm, actually served him incredibly well because I don't think she was ready for him to stand up to her insane claims, but he did it in such a nice way. That even the moderator really kind of gave him, she was obviously very biased, but she gave him some lax because he was gracious and calm. Yeah. So it was, incredible.
There was even a moment where he addressed her in a very sincere way and said, by the way, I'm honored to share this stage with you. And I think she was just like kind of blown back by that. She had no idea how to respond to his gracious, olive branch that he reached out to her. He's like, I never thought I'd be sharing the stage with you. I was in that chair, 4 years ago. One thing for me is that Pence, he hit the easy layups, if you will, that Trump last week kind of missed. So last week, Joe Biden told the Charlottesville find people hoax, and President Trump just kind of let it slide for some reason. I don't know why. But Mike Pence last night did a great job of saying, well, this, and we're going to get into all of those things. But when she brought up a lie, he actually attacked it head on. And even there was a moment where the debater or the moderator tried to go to another subject. And then Mike Pence, when he had time again, said, hold on a minute. I want to go back to address something because you didn't let me finish. And that was like really good as well. So I was glad that he was on attack mode all night long.
Yeah. And just to clarify sort of why that happened when they set up these debates, both sides have to agree to the rules. But the problem is the way that they change these debates. If somebody attacks you with a blatant lie, you don't necessarily get to respond to that thing. And so the only real option you have is either to interrupt, which was President Trump's approach, which didn't really work out too well, because he kept, Joe Biden kept lying about him. So he had to continually interrupt and say, you can't call me this, you can't do that. But what Pence did, which obviously he probably studied what happened last week and said, okay, I know they're going to drop some lies. I'm going to take my time. address that lie and then come
Yes.
back and answer the question. And I
Yeah.
thought that was a very effective way of sort of, countering those blatant lies being told by Kamala Harris. So yeah, I thought that was actually a really great strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And does this give you kind of a little bit of a flashback from 2016? Because I think we all remember the first debate that Trump had against Hillary. He did not do amazingly well. Then Pence came in the next week, did really well against Tim Kaine. And then President Trump, okay, we'll get into the whole debate fiasco going on later as well. But then President Trump came back in the second debate and just destroyed Hillary. So hopefully, if there is a second debate, because we'll get into all that a little bit later. Hopefully, President Trump learns from what he did wrong and maybe what Mike Pence did right, and then fixes that going forward.
Agreed.
So I want to. Yeah, so I want to get into the first clip here. And so you posted this on Twitter last night. Now, I don't have the Thug Life glasses on Mike Pence as you did, but basically this was his first zinger of the night. He basically, because, you have Kamala Harris saying, well, we're going to go out there and we're going to test and vaccinate and listen to the scientists. And Mike Pence could not have answered any better. Here's what he said.
The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way. I mean, quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about.
I mean, that when he said that, I was just like blown back because I didn't think he had that in him. Because maybe that was a planned line. I don't know, but it looked spontaneous. What about you? What did you see? What did you do when you saw him drop that bomb on her?
It was incredible right out the gate. My first thing was when Pence came out. So my initial impression of the night, Pence came out and I was like, oh no, he's low energy. Get this man a Red Bull. Because he came out, hey, I'm really excited to be here. Good to see you, Kamala. He wasn't full voice, full bravado, ready to fight. But I guess that's just his style. But he was totally ready. He's got that like low key dragon energy in him. So yeah, when he came out with that, I jumped out of my seat. I was like, boom, Pence is bringing it right now. This is amazing. And
yeah, he did.
Yeah, because people forget that Joe Biden has a long history of plagiarism. It was actually the reason why he had to drop out of the race. I think it was 1988. He actually had to drop out for lying and plagiarism. Yet now today, he's allowed to just continue to get away with it. So I love that Pence brought that up and called him out on it.
And he was, that plagiarism was so long ago. He's been corrupt for so long that Johnny Carson did a stand-up bit on it. Like back in the day. I mean, though that clip went viral a few weeks ago, it's bad when even there's when somewhere, you've been in politics a long time, when somewhere on this earth, there's a clip of Johnny Carson, roasting you. This is the second clip here I want to bring up here. And this is, I was hoping and praying and crossing my fingers that Mike Pence was going to bring this up because the debate moderator did not bring up the issue of stacking the Supreme Court. This was definitely all debate prep right here, in my opinion, because he brought it up and he cornered Kamala Harris on it. So we're going to play two different clips and then we'll get the reaction.
The American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed? I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama. Presidents have nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150 years, if you don't get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, you're going to change the rules. Now, you've refused to answer the question. Joe Biden has refused to answer the question. So I think the American people would really like to know, if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed to the Supreme Court of the United States, are you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election, going to pack the Supreme Court to get your way?
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more.
No.
In 1864...
Well, I'd like you to answer the question.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
Oh, my God.
In 1864,
And so the clip ends there, and then let me play the next clip here. So she completely dodges the question, tries to go. I mean, the condescension in her was absolutely just unreal. So then I'm going to play the next clip, and then we'll react here.
American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court?
Okay, sorry. I accidentally double uploaded the same clip. But then he basically says, he goes back and says, she didn't answer the question. Let the record show that they did not answer the question, and you know what that means, that they absolutely will stack the Supreme Court. So what did you do when he called her out and when she just fumbled over her words?
I have to say that whole segment, because also the lead up to that moment was him talking about standing behind his pro-life beliefs. I have to say that whole thing, I was sitting there, like, I actually physically grabbed my chest, and my girlfriend was sitting next to me. I like grabbed her arm and I'm squeezing her. Like, is this really happening right now? I'm tripping out. It literally, it made me fall in love with Mike Pence in that moment. Yes. I had this moment where I said, this man is not just vice presidential, he is presidential, and he is such a strong leader. I was like, wow, like, Mike Pence, I heard somebody, I forget who tweeted it, but it was like, Mike Pence is the wingman of America. Like, this guy was Jack Posobiec, good. Oh, it was Jack. I wanted to say Jack, but I was like, what?
I saw that last night.
Yeah, it was so good. It was such a good line, because I was like, yes, he is he really just grabbed me in that moment, because not only standing up for your beliefs and not cowering from a subject that most Republicans won't even touch on, but then to bring it back to the Supreme Court and to call her out for what her party is pushing for, which is
absolutely.
And that line, when Democrats don't win, they change the rules. And that's something that I say and that I bring up all the time, but you don't hear politicians really call them out on their dirty games. And he called it out straight up.
Yeah.
You know,
and the thing about the whole packing the Supreme Court thing is, if you know that if President Trump wins this election, and then on November, okay, let's just in a perfect world assume that we know the results of the election on election night. I don't even want to get into if we have to wait a few weeks, but assuming that we know the results, if the next day President Trump wins and says, oh, hey, by the way, you remember how you guys were wanting to pack the Supreme Court? Well, we kept the Senate. We still have the presidency. I'm going to add 3 more justices. They would lose their minds. But when they want to do it, they think that for some reason it's okay. I don't understand that.
Well, they're hypocrites. I mean, the Democrat Party have proven themselves to be beyond hypocritical at this point, and the party of, oh, good for me, but not for thee, right? Telling you to wear a mask, even though, you know, Feinstein's in an airport not wearing a mask, even though she's really in a high risk category. Nancy Pelosi getting her hair done, not wearing a mask, going to a salon, even though banning other people from being able to open their businesses or get their hair done. I mean, the hypocrisy is astounding within the Democrat Party. And you know, it's good to see Republicans finally calling them out on their BS. Because here's the thing too, that they were so up in arms that President Trump won the election, but Hillary won the popular vote. I think that Trump would have won. He would have campaigned differently, right? He would have,
of course,
approached the constituency differently. But it's so funny, because every single time Democrat can't win, they start saying that they want to change the rules. And you know, fundamentally, we have a system in place that works. Play by those rules and try to win. Democrats can't win on their policies and try to appeal to the American people in a straightforward way, which is why they're changing the rules and cheating. So heads up, Democrats.
Yeah, well, they know they can't win the right way, because they also have lost the middle in a huge way, and we've seen that. Now, speaking of what you were saying about, you know, the last election, something came up last night, which again, I didn't have one criticism of Mike Pence. He answered everything and he debunked everything basically exactly how I wanted him to. There was only one thing that he didn't debunk as thoroughly, but I was like, you know what? In the heat of the moment, it was really hard to, you know, get all these details out here. But here was one where, you know, because the media, even though Hillary Clinton has told Joe Biden, do not concede this election under any circumstances. For some reason, they're blaming President Trump of not wanting a peaceful transition of power. So Mike Pence last night, I'm so glad he brought this up. He says, peaceful transition of power. We won the election 3.5 years ago, and you guys are still trying to overturn it. So let's play that clip real quick.
President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President? What would you personally do? You have 2 minutes.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election. Because while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years, President Donald Trump has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record where we rebuild our military. We revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we stood with the men and women of law enforcement every single day. And I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger in the last 4 years. But when you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. Oh. It's amazing. When Joe Biden was Vice President of the United States, the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign. I mean, there were documents released this week that the CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years.
So what was your reaction when he dropped that bomb on her?
It was so good, man. God bless Mike Pence. I don't know if God was like watching over that debate. Like, we are just going to deliver you the best like words and confidence in those moments. And I mean, that was really cool. It's funny though, because I then go back and I watch the reactions from CNN and MSNBC, and they're criticizing Pence for not answering the question, even though, there was many times that Kamala.
Well, hey, they're both probably right there in terms of unlikability, so I don't blame you for, being confused there.
I know, it's so funny. Freudian slip there. But no, it was, I mean, it was such a good reminder to the American people, right? He did that a lot. He brought up many, many times when Kamala and the Democrats did things that the American people found that pulled really bad with Americans. He brought up Kavanaugh, and then he brought up impeachment. He brought up the Russia collusion hoax and the wasting of millions of taxpayer dollars, because trying to just, basically to, delegitimize Trump's presidency and to, just confuse the American people that he won legitimately. So it was a really great way to turn it on its head. It's funny though, because they keep coming back around to that question, but I love that he brought up Hillary Clinton said that you should not concede under any circumstance.
100%. Yep.
They're the party. They always accuse other people of doing exactly what they're doing. So I'm really.
It goes back to that hypocrisy.
Americans that,
absolutely. I mean, so it's like, wait a minute, how can you, like, for instance, a couple weeks ago, they asked President Trump in a press conference, will you do a peaceful transition to power? And he said the words, "We'll see." And the media freaked out. And it's like, wait a minute. Hillary Clinton is on the DNC, or what it was on the day of the DNC, one of the days, saying, do not concede under any circumstances. You better get a legal team started right now. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. And I think one of the scariest things of all is that the social media giants and the liberal media are now joining forces. And the social media giants have basically come out and says, if anyone claims victory ahead of time, we are going to shut you down. So what it feels like to me is that the only way that President Trump is going to be given this reelection is if he wins this thing. I mean, I don't know. This is just speculation. But if he needs to win this thing and leave no doubt, in my opinion, maybe he can win close and have the Supreme Court pull it out at the end. But at the end of the day, leave no doubt, win by a landslide and let's win this thing,
Agreed. It has to be a complete blowout because you cannot leave any doubt on the table. The Democrats are going to cheat, and if it comes down to even 100,000 vote difference, you've got to blow it out of the water because 100,000 votes in Pennsylvania or Florida,
Yep.
they're going to try to pull out these mail-in ballots and be like, oh, well, we've got all of these that came in, 2 weeks later, and they should be
100%.
counted. So
Yep.
it has to be, you need to get every single person to the polls on election day. And vote in person as much as possible.
Yep.
It really, there can be no doubt. There's no one who can sit this one out because
Yep.
if it were a straight, fair election, Trump would easily win because he would just need all the people that showed up and voted for him in 2016 to vote again.
100%.
And
Yep.
he's picked up a lot more support since then, especially
Absolutely.
in African American communities,
Yep.
among the gay population, Hispanics. So his support is growing. So there's no way that Joe Biden's going to bring out people with the low enthusiasm he has. So this is why the Democrats have completely set up this whole plan. And
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
gonna be
And
scary.
so everyone who's watching, we still got over 2,100 live here. Can you guys tell us how you are voting? Are you voting in person? And again, guys, I know some of you are in states that are doing mandatory mail-in, but I want to see how many people are voting in person or if they're doing absentee, what you guys are doing. So leave that in the comments and then I'll shout that out here. Now, this was one of my favorite moments because this was one of the easiest things that President Trump could have done last week. But again, for me, here's how I see President Trump. He's always been a businessman, executive. He has always been this guy who his level of thinking is what a CEO needs. The CEO isn't supposed to be in the minute details of the day-to-day business. So many things. He always casts a big vision and has a big idea and then gets people to implement it. So when you and we know the Charlottesville hoax, right? We know that, hey, the media took the video clip out of context and they're clipping it and they're slicing it to make it look, and we've got everyone saying in person. I haven't seen one not in person. But President Trump last week, when Joe Biden, every time Joe Biden tells the Charlottesville story, he gets more dramatic. He always adds more details. He's like, first it was just the tiki torches. Then it was tiki torches with vile hatred of anti-Semitism. I'm like, is someone writing a fiction novel here? Because every single time it gets more dramatic. And so, but last night, Kamala Harris tried bringing it up again, and Mike Pence did about as best a job as he possibly could to debunk that. And it's one of my favorite moments. So that's why I want to play this here, because he really hit it out of the park.
I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this country, Susan, is that you selectively edit, just like Senator Harris did, comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle make. I mean, Senator Harris conveniently omitted, after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and has done so repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish. This is a president who respects and cherishes all of the American people.
All right, so right there, I mean, when he finally came out and just said the words, they took the video out of context. How did you react to that? What was your response?
Well, you missed the very first part, the little bit before what that video showed, when he said, this is exactly the reason why the American people distrust the media so much. And I thought that was such a great jab, both at calling out Kamala because she knows that she was completely lying, but also a jab at the moderator and the media. And, sort of speaking to the American people, like, what's up. Don't let this woman, don't believe these lies that get repeated over and over. And then he debunked it systematically. He talked about the clip was taken out of context. And then also pointed out, obviously, it's a lie. It's not even, there's not even a glimmer of truth to it because President Trump has been, basically the most pro-Israel president I think we've ever had. He has Jewish family and grandchildren. So, I thought Mike Pence just did such a good spin on that. He didn't get his feathers ruffled.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, what you were saying about President Trump, he kind of went into his debate like bull in a china shop, but to me, President Trump I think he's got to be frustrated. I mean, it's been 4 years of fighting the fake news media. He's sitting up there. Chris Wallace keeps interrupting him. Joe Biden keeps lying about him. He did
And
not,
the way that
he went out there like a little too pumped up to tear him down.
he did.
But also, I have to say, my personal theory, I think he went out there swinging really, really hard. Like, I'm going to knock this guy out, even if I only get one debate. I want it to be like a TKO.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think he was surprised that Joe Biden held his own a little bit. And I think partially, I think Trump wanted to see if he could just completely rattle him. Because if he did, and Joe Biden went complete gobbledygook in his brain the way he has been known to do, I think it would have just knocked out the whole thing. And it didn't happen. I think Joe Biden,
100%.
I mean, he's obviously taken something, like.
Exactly. Well, I mean, when you refuse to take a drug test, I mean, come on. If like I played high school football, if they would have said, all right, guys, random drug test, and I said, I'm not taking that, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? One thing with Mike Pence, you can tell he was just calm, cool, and collected, and he was measured in his. You could hear he let the question come to him, sat on it for a second, and then responded. With President Trump, this guy, like, he is absolutely amazing. But something you were saying here a second ago about, he came in with that particular strategy. I think with President Trump, he likes to wing it. And also, too, I mean, this guy didn't have 10 hours a day to do debate prep like Joe Biden did, so you're right. But he came in with that strategy now, here's the one thing I was going to say is that anytime that an entire group of people say that one thing is going to happen, I immediately start getting nervous, saying, oh, no. And what did we hear from, I'll admit, on my show, from conservatives everywhere? What do? All we do is we share clips of Joe Biden stumbling and stuttering and stopping and looking old and frail. So our expectations were down here for Joe Biden and maybe for America. And again, all he had to do is not have a mental collapse on stage, and suddenly it was going to be considered a victory, And so I hope
because
now
it basically is a victory to Joe Biden, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
I have been watching Joe Biden's videos, so I'm probably one of the only people that actually watches these live streams. Sometimes I'm watching his live streams and there's only 27 people on there, and I'm one of them because I watch them in thorough because I want to see what's going to happen and what he's going to say. He says basically the same thing every single time. They're incredibly boring, but he has a lot of bizarre gaffes, mental confusion, signs of dementia. So I do question the man's health, and I do think that surprised a lot of people that he was so apparently with it for that debate.
Agree.
So,
well, and again, with like football games, I mean, if a player is injured, if they're hurt but not super injured, what they'll do is they'll give them a shot of something, and for the next 2 hours, they're on top of the world. What's to say that he wasn't on something? Because like you said, now there is a reason why us conservatives have shared these videos over and over, because they happen so frequently, And so I think there's a big point there. Now I want to get to your video because I want to be respectful of the time here. So I want to get to your video. There's so much more of that debate we can get into, but we'll go into more of that later. So as many of you guys did see, now we're going to post her YouTube channel right here in the comments, you guys. She went to the most liberal part of Texas, of Houston, Texas, and put on Joe Biden hat and T-shirt. You went undercover. I hope you've burned that gear, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. I hope you burned it by now. However, she went undercover to kind of attract the moths to the flame and see if she could find any support for Joe Biden. Now, before I play the opening part of that clip, what gave you the idea to do this? And were you nervous, or what did you think was going to happen when you went into Houston and did that?
So first of all, I tried to make this video before, and I went out and was just doing, hey, like, I'm doing man on the street interviews. Can I interview you? And then I want to speak with Joe Biden supporters. I recently relocated to Texas for a month for some work stuff, some election stuff. And since I've been here, I see a lot of Joe Biden signs. It's a heavy Democrat area, which is bizarre for Texas. I actually kind of hate it. I don't mean to speak ill of Texas, but they've got a statewide mask mandate. It's super uptight. Again, this is my impression being in Houston, which is a very Democrat area. Sheila Lee Jackson, who's one of the worst in Congress, this is her district. So it's just been not great, not a great first impression for me moving to Texas for a month. But so I went out, I tried to do the video before. No one would talk to me. It was like I kind of couldn't find the Biden supporters. I think people are also shy. But
Yeah.
I thought to myself, every time I have my MAGA hat on, people come up to me and say, "Oh, great. I love Trump. Like, let me shake
That's
your hand.
awesome.
Thanks for
Yeah.
rocking your hat." So I thought, I'm going to put on the Joe Biden hat, the Joe Biden shirt, the people will come to me, right? So this was my thinking. So I went out to the same park and I tried my experiment. Again, super Democrat area from what I gathered. And yeah, I still had a really difficult time finding Biden supporters. And even the Biden supporters I found were very unenthusiastic, or just very like uninformed. So
Right.
the video that I made was it was not the video that I expected to make.
Yeah. So, okay. So the full video is 8 minutes long, but I've clipped it into 4 different 1 minute segments. So I'm going to play the beginning clip. Everybody check out this video because it's pretty interesting. So I'm sorry. We're going to start with the scene of the crime when you actually put on that hat in the beginning. So let's see here.
So today I am taking one for the team, taking off my MAGA hat, and going undercover as a Biden supporter. Let's go talk to some people. You Joe Biden supporter? No? I'm interviewed and speaking to other people too. Joe Biden? Oh, all right. Are you registered to vote? You voting? Voting?
Just ignore it.
Your head. Yep. Not for
Yep.
Joe Biden. You guys voting? Anybody want to do a quick interview for? Good, but we are voting. Awesome. Thank you for voting. Exercising your civic duties as Americans. That's what we have to do. We have to get out there and vote. Are you supporting Joe Biden?
This one's good.
No? You haven't decided yet? I feel like everybody has a very strong opinion about this.
Yeah, we're good.
Really? Yeah. I feel like you have an opinion, you're just not telling me it. Nobody's voting. Nobody's voting. People don't like Joe Biden. I'm learning this.
I'm voting.
Who are you voting for?
I'm voting for Trump because I care about this country.
Okay, so
That guy was so triggered. He was so triggered by my outfit and the fact that I was going around trying to speak to people. He was like, "I'm voting for Trump." Oh my gosh!
Because I care about this. So a couple things to that. So first of all, the family that was just kind of sitting by the tree planter, he says we don't know who we're voting for. That tells me if he's telling someone in a Biden hat we don't know, that's telling me he's voting for Trump. So that's the first observation I made. Second of all, how hard was it when you did come across a Trump supporter that you're wearing a Biden hat? Because there's a couple times where you're like Trump 2020, but you're wearing a Biden hat. They were probably really confused,
Yeah, it's really funny because I didn't notice it until I went back and edited the video. I wasn't like, yeah, I'm voting for Trump too. I just said Trump 2020. I literally never said like President Trump. I just said Trump 2020. So,
right.
But yeah, I think they didn't know what to make of it. A couple of times people caught that I was doing a shtick, but their initial impression is this chick decked out in Biden stuff.
100%.
Out here, I don't want to talk to her.
Right. So the next clip is you actually came across. Well, this guy waved you down. He said, "Hell yeah, I'm voting for Biden." Now, of all the people you interviewed, he was the most informed because he actually had one reason that justified to him. And then the next clip I'm going to play goes into a couple other people who not only didn't know a thing of what they were talking about, but they flat out admitted it to you. So let's watch this clip here.
Sound bites? All right. We got some support for Joe Biden. What is your one of your favorite accomplishment of Joe Biden's career in politics?
I think, helping Obama pass, Obamacare, because I know he was in the room with him.
He's been in office for 47 years. What's your favorite accomplishment of his?
I don't know, honestly.
If he hasn't been connected to Obama, I probably wouldn't know very much about him. But yeah, I'll admit, I'm not as familiar with Biden. It's just because I haven't really needed to follow him as much because he hasn't been in the spotlight for the same reasons that Trump has. So.
Can you name an accomplishment of Joe Biden's 47-year career?
Probably not at this moment, no.
I mean, to be honest, I haven't really looked into it too much on his policies. I just prefer him over Trump. So yeah, I'm definitely going to vote for Biden.
So, what's your reaction to those uninformed voters there?
Well, I also like how I became more aggressive with the way I asked the question. At first, I was like, "What's your favorite Joe Biden accomplishment?" And then I was like, "They can't really come up with anything." Yeah. So then I was like, "I'm just going to go for it." So I said, what I think I wanted to say, can you name a single, but I was like, can you name or like can you name a single Joe Biden accomplishment of his 47-year career in politics? But I phrased it a little nicer so they wouldn't know it was a gotcha. But yeah, most people can't. And I mean, even I've looked into it and followed his career pretty thoroughly after like looking into him when he became the nominee. You know, this guy, basically everything he has achieved, he's walked back or done a 180 on. So you can't even really tout his accomplishments because they're really not accomplishments anymore. And he really doesn't have anything else to show for that 47-year career other than getting quite wealthy, you know, while being in public office and as well as some shady deals that were, you know, done by his son. So, you know, it was pretty funny. I expected people at least have like one or two things, but I mean, they couldn't name a thing.
Well, apparently being in the room
when
a god-awful healthcare plan is drafted is a huge accomplishment to some of these people. Not a lot of people, it's like the Obamacare was a disaster for all parties involved. I mean, but apparently being in the room is good enough for some of these voters. And it's just crazy that the one guy was a little younger, skinny guy, and he's like, you know, honestly, I haven't looked into it. I mean, but it's just crazy to me because these people are going to be voting. Like, they're voting on November 3rd. Yeah. And their votes are going to be for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And they don't know anything, and they haven't admitted it. So then this next clip here is you actually fact-checking them, and then we're going to play one final clip. So this is you actually – now, I like the way you did it, too, because this might have been a little bit of a tell because you said facts that were kind of a little anti-Biden, but you kind of fact-checked them. Now, the first people we come across, they're actually really gracious when you did kind of correct them. And this part here made me cringe when I first saw it, was because the poor girl didn't know the difference between pro-choice and pro-life, but she just, whatever Joe Biden was for, that's what she was for. So I will say this, you might come across this as well. Not a lot of people are used to being on camera like you and I are, so they might be a little nervous about that. So, you know, but let's play this clip here.
Do you name any Joe Biden accomplishments of his 47-year career?
Not that I can really think of. I just know like some of his views on like, you know, like LGBTQ like community and all of the other stuff that like he supports, and he's very like he's pro life, right? Or I don't think he's like you know, I don't know what I'm talking about, but anyways, but yeah.
I'm gonna just give you a couple facts, just to throw some facts out there.
Watch his face.
So
it's
Joe Biden
funny.
was not pro-LGBTQ community when he entered office. Neither was Barack Obama. Donald Trump is actually the first person to enter office as president who's been pro-LGBT. He supports gay marriage. He's very pro on those things, and a lot of the gay community claim that he's the most pro-LGBT president. So if that's important to you, I would look into that. I would factor that into your decision making. So yeah, I would just consider that if that's important to you.
He's got so red-pilled.
Thank you. Awesome. So red-pilled. Look up who's doing what before you vote. Okay?
Of course.
All right. Awesome.
We will. All right. Thank you so much. All
right. Bye.
They figured it out.
What's sort of the worst thing Trump's done? Your biggest issue with Trump over the last 4 years?
Oh, where to start?
Where to start?
Well,
where to
They
start?
always say that. They always say that. Oh, there's so many things.
How immigrants are being treated and being held at the facilities.
One thing I was just gonna let you know, because like it really bothered me when I found this out. But the cages at the southern border were built by Obama in 2014. That was that was when Joe Biden was vice president. So just so you know, you don't you want to look into that or just not bring that up. But
so were you trying to just continue to disguise yourself as a Biden supporter? Like, if you get into debate, don't bring that up because he built the cages. Oh my God. Yeah, that was a good strategy. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, I just kind of came up with that, but I was still in character. I was like, so just so you know, like maybe if you're going to talk about it, maybe just don't bring that up.
That was good because when I first saw it, I was like, "Wait a minute, was she still in character?" And then I'm like, "Yeah, you were trying to give her some tips, like, oh, by the way, because sometimes it's like, guys, we got this one wrong, so maybe don't bring this up in a debate." And then finally, here you're wrapping up your video talking about how it's a weird day, and you try to go for one last gasp attempt, and this guy walking by with a family has a line of the century. So let's play this clip and then finish it off.
All right, as always, I'm Fog City Midge. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe. You voting for Joe Biden? Not on my life, he says. So that I'm getting a lot of that out here, and this is a Democrat area.
So he just dropped the mic right at the very end there, didn't he?
Yeah, and he knew. He sees what I'm wearing, and he's laughing about it. Not on my life. So it was a surprising day, and it was really fun to meet those people. That moment, I just have to point it out, when we were talking to the two young kids, and the girl was like, good on her. She admitted, she's like, honestly, I don't really know what I'm talking about. And
exactly.
And then I said, well, if you are pro-LGBT, if that's important to you, you might want to look into Trump, which is really funny because it's almost like if I was a sincere Biden supporter, I'm like basically telling them like, dude, if you're pro-LGBT, like vote for the other guy.
So,
our administration's really not about that. So
100%.
I thought that was so funny. And I think they kind of figured it out by the end and they were laughing with me, but it was,
I saw that, right? Like you said, at the very end, they were like, kind of, and like you said, his face, he was like, the pill was at least put in his hand because, so you and I were both in DC for the walkaway event. Brandon Strauch put on an amazing event, and Brandon Strauch cried after Hillary Clinton won.
Yes.
That's how much of a Hillary supporter he was. He cried and sobbed after Hillary won. But all it took was a friend reaching out and exposing one lie from the liberal media of this lie that he mocked a handicapped reporter, which he did not do. And once Brandon learned that information, his life literally changed. It gave me goosebumps because his entire trajectory of his life changed because one lie was pointed out. Yeah. So if that was great that you did. If you could point out just one lie, then people start to say, whoa, what else are they lying to me about? What else are they lying to me about? And I think that right there, just coming out with facts, because sometimes it's like, man, these facts, they just get thrown around. Oh, fact check. You guys are lying. We're lying. They're lying. But when you sit someone down in a very calm manner and show them the truth about Trump, I mean, their minds change. Is that what you've, experienced as well on the street so much?
Somewhat. It takes an open-minded person and a critical thinker to actually go down and do the work. Brandon Strauch is incredible. And I have to say, just like for people that haven't seen it, they have to watch the 1-hour interview he did with Mark Levin because it's so fascinating. I've watched it like 3 or 4 times, where he breaks down how he got red pilled in that video you mentioned, and just the how his thought process changed. And that's what is so powerful. And that's why I tell people to speak up, because you don't know. You might present someone with something that they've never heard before, and that might be the seed, the red pill, so to speak, that changes the rest of their life. So never stop fighting, never stop speaking up and sharing truth and videos and exposing the lies of the left. Because you never know whose life you're going to change.
Exactly. And I like what you said there. It takes an open mind. I mean, if someone is closed-minded, then there's not much you can do to get through with them. But every once in a while, there are people. And the thing with Brandon, too, is that it didn't happen overnight. He found this lie and he said, I didn't immediately become pro-Trump or this person to start this movement for Trump. It took him a little bit. So I think just constantly being exposed to truth is just such a great thing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We've been posting your YouTube link in the chat throughout the entire chat here. So hopefully, guys, check her out on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, all Fog City Midge. Is there any final thoughts that you have in general about the debate, politics going forward? We're less than a month away from the election.
I would just say, everyone, know that you are on the right side of history. Do not be dismayed. Keep fighting. Get out there and vote on November 3rd. Get your friends out there to vote. And just keep supporting this president, because no matter what the fake news media will tell you, he is doing incredible things for this country. Even if you didn't like his performance in the debate, look at what he's done over the past 4 years with peace deals, with supporting the right to life, with our economy, lowering taxes, putting more money back into the pocket of hardworking Americans, and just deregulation so that businesses can come back, which is why we've seen this manufacturing boom and all of these jobs created. This president has done more for the American people than any Republican or Democrat that I can even think of. So if if you're thinking of voting for anyone other than Trump, you really got to try to separate what is it you don't like. And if it's his personality, you need to set that aside because that's petty and go look at the policies, because President Trump cannot be beat on policy. He cannot be beat on his achievements. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so just go back to that and make sure that if you are supporting Trump, just stay strong. It's going to be a rough couple months, but we're on the right side of history. Trump 2020.
And vote in person if possible. On top of that. Exactly. Well, that was amazing. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Tomorrow is Friday, so it'll be our last show of the week. Thank you. Make sure as we go live, turn down your volume so it doesn't blast your ears like it did when we started here. Okay. So everyone, have a great rest of your day, and I will be talking to you guys all soon. Thank you so much, Maggie, for joining us today.
Thank you.